Betty Carlisle Horner, and I live in the England community, 4.5 miles south of Chelsea. And I've lived here around all my life.
This is allotted land, your mother's?
80 acres, Maddie, England, was my mother. She married Granville Carlisle,
Okay.
and he was white. I live now a mile north and half a mile west of where I was born and raised.
What kind of games did you play?
Hopscotch, and then we'd play dominoes and checkers. We'd ride horses too. We had a horse there, and we'd get out and just play and climb in the trees. I was just a tomboy. I'd play with the marbles with the boys, and we'd all have fun. But the cousins lived just up the road from us, across from the schoolhouse. And my grandfather gave the England land to put the school up, or just across the pasture there up. It was about a half a mile from the 66 highway. And we had a England schoolhouse there, and I'd walk to school. We had those old shoes that laced up the top. I never did like to wear them, but that's what they'd buy me to wear all the time. And now the kids wears them. Well, in the summertime, we did. We'd just have shoes in the wintertime, you know. But we weren't barefooted all the time, run barefooted. We'd have to take our lunch, and Granny'd always fix sausage and biscuits or some kind of meat. And sometimes we'd have something sweet, but sometimes we didn't. We just had a sandwich, you know. And then they had church at that England school. They'd have all the denominations, and we'd go to church. Granny would take the lantern away. We'd go to church of a night across the pasture. I didn't have many toys, but my cousin, Virginia, she lived with her dad up there, and they lived across the pasture. And they'd, in summer, for Christmas, they bought toys and stuff, and she'd share them with me. I know she didn't like to, but she did, and she's always been good to me. Granny would sew some toys, dolls up for me, you know, but I never had many bought toys. My aunt, she would make my clothes, and Granny would make them. She made them by hand, but my aunt had a sewing machine, and a lot of times she'd sew for me. And then Granny, when she bought feed, she tried to buy 2 sacks of feed, you know, the same color. Then you matched everything up and put white collars on them, and they was nice, you know. Mm-hmm. But I thought they wasn't really as nice as the rest of the kids, but that was the way we had to. Granny would gather the eggs, and she'd sell her eggs to the store. She'd send me down after coffee, and what was left, I could get me a sack of candy. And most generally the coffee would be about 15 cents or 16 cents, and then I'd have some money left to get me a sack of candy. And well, that was quite a treat.
I bet. Yeah.
And then I wouldn't eat it all at once. I'd kind of save it and make it go a long ways. Once in a while, in the wagon, Uncle Ross would hook up the horses, and we'd go to town and get groceries. We always had a big garden in the summertime. We had to work in it, you know, and Granny would raise all kinds of vegetables, and we'd have to hoe it, and I'd always help Granny, and then we'd always have beans, and then in the fall raise turnips, and we'd dig a deep hole and cover them, and they'd stay good for winter. But in the summertime, we'd raise onions, and we'd always tie them up and hang them up, let them dry, and then put them in the cellar. Mm-hmm. And same as potatoes, we'd dig those and let them dry out on the ground or on the back porch, and then put them in the cellar. And we always raised chickens. But we had pork. We always raised hogs and had pork, but I never did remember having any beef when I was a kid. They'd all gather when we'd butcher hogs, and the kids would, and they'd have a big barrel of hot water, and they'd put them down and out, and then everybody'd help scrape and clean the hogs, you know. And that was just a thing that they did, you know. And the community would come in and help, you know, and the kids, and we'd all have fun. But my uncle would raise the corn and cotton, and we'd have to pick cotton in the summertime after I got older. And I couldn't pull a big sack, so Granny'd get a feed sack and put strings on it, and that's what I picked my cotton in. And another thing, when we dried corn, we'd boil it and cut it off and put it in a flour sack and spread it out and put it on top of the porch and let it dry. And then after it dried so long, you know, we'd keep turning it and we'd put it in jars and we'd have the dried corn in for winter. It wasn't until later when I got older that I went swimming. Granny never would let me swim, so I didn't know how. But that buck, we'd go down to my aunt's and he'd throw us out and then we'd have to swim out. So that's how I learned to swim. The cousins all come in, and I had a bunch of cousins, and they'd all come in and we'd all have swim down to my aunts and uncles down there. Later, the Indians gave Granny a cow, and we'd have to milk, and Mama would milk. But a lot of time after Mama, she stayed there a while, and before she married again. She married when I was 5, but she'd milk the cow, and we had a big red barn that was out there, and a lot of times the bums would come 66 highway. They could see the barn. They'd stay all night up in the loft, and she'd find coats and stuff. And then if they'd come to the porch for Granny be hungry, and she never did turn them away. She'd go fix them some coffee, or we always had pork, and she'd always give them biscuit and sausage or something, but she never did turn one of them away to eat, because she always fed them. But I was always scared to death because they had long beards and their hair was long, and I would be scared, but she wasn't afraid. She wasn't. Then people wasn't afraid, you know, but she was quite a person. We had a well out by this big red barn, and it was they had the deal around it, and we always kept a dipper and a bucket out there, and then we had one right off the back porch that we had a box on, and that's the one we drawed water to wash, and we'd always wash on Saturdays most generally, but in the summertime, the pretty days, then we'd wash. But when we washed, we'd wash on a rub board and then wash them, and then the white ones, and then we'd have a big pot that we'd had fire, and we'd boil our white things, and then we'd rinse them and hang them out. But I always hated to wash the overalls because they were so hard to wash, you know, on a rub board. My grandma made lye soap. Yeah, we'd have drippings of grease. Sometimes she'd make the lye, but I can't remember how she made the lye out of ashes. She'd fix it and let it drip. But then we'd buy lye later and make soap. But we always made our soap, made big bars where we could rub it on the spots of the dirty clothes and wash. My husband and I always rode horses. When we first got married, we didn't have no way to go but on horseback, you know. But I never could ride a horse good. I'd always get tickled and fall off. And my cousin, we used to go down to my aunt's down Beulah, and Virginia would come over and bring an old gray mare, and she'd ride across the creek, and she'd always get on there and ride that horse, and I'd get on her, and then she'd get me tickled, and I'd fall off, and she'd have to come back and help me up on. I never could ride a horse. We'd ride bareback too. There were no saddles, you know, just a bareback, jump on them and ride them.